Hello and welcome to the 10th edition of our New South Wales Referees Life Member Series. Today we've been fortunate enough to be joined by a very popular man amongst the refereeing fraternity. He's a life member of our association, a former chairman for 5 years and former first grade referee, Dennis Spagarino. How are you, Dennis?
Good, thank you, Daniel. Very good.
What are you doing in these times of social distancing to keep yourself busy?
Oh, geez, it's tough, isn't it? Well, I play a bit of golf, trying to play a bit of golf. Not too well, but still it gets me out there in fresh air and work at home, of course, do some work at home. And I've got a couple of motorbikes. I've become a bit of a bikey. You know, you get your second youth. So I play with my bikes a bit and just waiting so I can go back to on a bike ride shortly, as soon as I can. Anyway, it's keeping me busy.
What type of bikes you got?
I've got two old ones. One's called the Laverda, 1981 Laverda. It's an old Italian bike. It was the quickest bike in the 70s and early 80s that was ever made. So it's a bit of a beast. And then I've got a little one, a Benelli 250. Needless to say, they're both Italian bikes.
What about your handicap?
Oh, you have to mention it. It's not too good, but I enjoy the game. I'm on 27, so I'm just a hacker, but I enjoy the game.
And what golf course you're heading down to at the moment?
I'm a member of North Ryde Golf Course, where there's a few Balmain players, ex-Balmain players. There's a few referees like Graham West and Paul Kalina. They play their members there. But there's some old Balmain officials like Peter Mulkey and things like that. So it's still got the football flavour about it.
Yeah,
of course.
All right. So to start off, Spagarino. What's the origins? It's Italian. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is Italian. Sorry, Daniel. It is Italian. There's a bit of a history here because my grandfather and his two brothers came to Australia in 1907. And the Australian government, when they got here, they said, listen, we need a sugarcane industry developed further up in North Queensland. You've got some land up there, go and produce some sugar. So the three brothers went to North Queensland, Babinda, Gordonvale, those places, Cairns, and started planting sugar, cleaning the land first, clearing the land, and building, putting sugar down and growing sugar cane. And then eventually the First World War came, and my grandfather went back to Italy, but the two brothers stayed there in North Queensland. So my grandfather went back to Italy, got married, had my mother, and then in 1945, Mum and Dad, after their wedding in 1945, in 1947 they came to Australia and went to North Queensland, and that's where they first came in, and my brother was born, and he died in Gordonvale. So then they moved to Sydney, and I was born in 1951 in Sydney. So there's a great history up in North Queensland of the Gidellas. That's what my mother's maiden name.
Okay. I thought there for a minute you were going to tell us that you were a Queenslander.
No, I wasn't born there either. I was born at the Mater Hospital in North Sydney. So I can't get more Australian than that.
All right. So before we get into your refereeing career, can you tell us a little bit about your long career in the automotive industry?
Always been a rev head in my youth. So I became a mechanic and worked at a service station in Newtown in 1968, I think it was. And went to tech at Ultimo, Sydney Technical College, and did 4-year apprenticeship there, and then worked at the garage until 1980. And then I went to teach at Sydney Ultima College, in the technical college where I did my apprenticeship. I went back and taught there and finished up running the automotive section and retired in 2012. So always been in the car game, either repairing it, teaching, and then retiring from it.
And work at the moment is?
Retired. Working on my motorbikes for fun. The cars of today are a bit too modern for me, so I can't fix them. But I can fix. I drive I drive a BMW X5 around when I bought it a couple of years ago, and I said, "Oh, I'll go have a look at this." I looked for the battery and I couldn't find it. It took me 18 months to find the battery. Eventually, I found it underneath the panel in the boot. So that's how good I am these days, trying to fix them.
So you should have got an Italian car.
Yeah, I should have. These German cars, you're right.
All right, so let's go all the way back to the beginning in terms of refereeing. You took up the whistle way back in 1972 with Western Suburbs referees. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to take the whistle and how this came about?
I've always liked sport. I was never, ever any good at rugby, playing rugby league. I did play it, played for the school, St Francis Paddington, played for the school. I played for Paddington Colts a season, but I was never any good at it. So at the end, when I got married, before I got married, I started refereeing in 72. I decided, well, if I love the game that much, I might be part of it. Maybe I can be a referee. So I got the ticket and became a referee, and I refereed my first game in 1972, the old schoolboys carnival.
Yep. That
was my first game.
So you went on to be quite successful in Western Suburbs. You refereed the 1978 A-grade grand final. I believe you got a bit of a story to tell us about what happened after that match.
Yeah, that was 1978. Yeah, you're right. The A-grade grand final. Geez, you've done your research.
I hope I'm right. You told me that one.
Yeah, I told you that one. Well, I was just saying that's good research. Yeah, I've done the 78 A-grade grand final between Lidcombe United and Benedict's United, two great A-grade clubs. In those years at West, we had a very, very strong A-grade.
Something like 20 teams.
Yeah, and we had players come in those days in the 70s. Players had come back from playing first grade or second grade at West, come back and play for their junior league clubs. Bobby Grant was one of them from South. We got a side from South Piedmont, and Bobby Grant was playing for that. And we had Ken Stone Street. We had Jeff Nielsen play for him for Enfield. So it was a very strong competition. And I did the grand final in 1978. And at the end of and it was a real brutal of a game, real brutal, tough game. And I had on me line Mick Ryan and Cliffy Apps. Well, after Benedict United just happened to win it by a couple of points, a very close game, but it was a real tough game. Well, the week after, I received a phone call from the Lidcombe president. And I said, oh, no, they lost the game. What do they want? And they invited me to their presentation night to present the best and fairest player for the year. And that was a great moment for me because I thought, a losing side invited me to their presentation night. And it stuck with me forever because, and I've become friends with a lot of the players in that side. Steve Goshen was one of them. He coached West first grade. And they treated me really well. And I thought I was special.
Yeah. It's something I think in the game we're involved in refereeing, you don't get too many plaudits and you got to take them when you can.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly can. So after refereeing the grand final in 78, you went on and you refereed the President's Cup grand final in 1979. Now, this was a junior reps appointment. It was a little bit different back then in those days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
we
were
didn't. Sorry, Daniel.
So then you were graded as member 789. Oh, sorry, 689
Yep.
the same year.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in those days, there was no junior rep side, as we know it now and years ago. In other words, you were nominated by the district's advisory board. You were nominated for grade. They might send for the junior representative games, and you might get an appointment board bloke from grade to come down and have a look at you. But there was no formal training or nothing. And I did my first. I went into junior representatives in 1974. And in 75, I did the grand final on the line in the ball, SG ball, with Les Matthews did the centre, and me and Rick Sinclair from Parramatta did the line at the cricket ground prior to New South Wales playing England. Okay. And that was my first sort of a rep appointment. Then after that, in 79, I did the grand final. The President Cup, as you said, and there was a special moment in there, was that about 10 minutes into the game, Balmain was one of the sides. John Bilbeja, that eventually played first grade for Balmain, I sent him off for belting head-eye tackle. At the game went all right, won, and I was sitting there. It was wet day, and I sat in the dressing sheds. This was the old sports ground, and I sat in the dressing sheds, and here comes Eric Cox in. He comes up to me and says, "Listen, Dennis, you sent Bill Beeger off." I said, "Yeah, I had to, I think." He said, "Yeah, you're lucky you did, because if you wouldn't have sent him off, you wouldn't have had a career in refereeing. Because you've sent him off, you're graded. Come into grade next week." Well, you can imagine me and the boys. I just sat down in that chair, couldn't believe it, but it happened.
Yep. So,
and then you go on. Sorry, I'll say one more thing about Eric Cox. So then that was 79, right? Then I did the last game, the President Cup last game, or the third grade, sorry, of the season. And 1980 was my next first full season. And I was really ready to start, in the centre. But Eric Cox did something to me that killed me that year. And that was this. I got married in May 1980. And I went to Eric Cox. I said, "Listen, Eric, I need a weekend off to get married. So I'm unavailable." And that was at the bar downstairs at the New South Wales League Club after referees meeting. And he looked at me in the face and he said, "Dennis, referees don't get married during the football season." Okay, and this is a true story.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I couldn't believe it. But anyway, he said, "Oh, I can't help it. We'll get married." He said, "Okay, yeah, that's fine. Get married." He put me on the line, and for the rest of that year, guess what? I waved the flag.
Yeah.
Didn't get near a centre until the following year in 1981. So that's how it was. You got treated by Eric Cox. What a wonderful man. But that was a real story that I keep on telling everybody. You blokes wins about appointments. Look at that. It doesn't happen to you these days like it happened to me.
Yeah. No, we've heard from other life members who have missed the birth of their children just to referee. So it's certainly big commitment and lessons learnt there. So you come into grade in 1979. Can you tell us a little bit about your story from then up until just before you make your first grade career? So coming through the grades, 23s, reserve grade and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I started real well for that last game in 79. And I was ready for 1980, and that killed me because I got married. And I still love my wife. Still there. She's still the heart of my, love my woman. But she caused me, because we got married, to miss 1980, and then got into second grade. I got into third grade, did a couple of games, and then I went to second grade, up and down as you would in those days. And then third grade in I think it was 82. I had a problem. I wasn't running the best. Wasn't running the best. And so, and I had Parramatta playing Wests at Lidcombe. And Jack Gibson, this is a funny story, Jack Gibson and Ron Massey were watching the third grade. Anyway, I didn't have a good game, it was rubbish. They fronted Ray O'Donnell, who was an appointment board member, and they said to him that I missed tackles. I couldn't count 6 tackles. And they gave him a whole list, because they just come back from America and learned about taking tackle counts to improve players' defence and all that. And well, of course, they counted my tackles, and they said I had 6 tackles, 5 tackles, 3 tackles, 7 tackles. Anyway, they were right. So that wiped me for that football season. And Ron Massey, who was a great official, said to me one day, he said, Dennis, you know, that year when you made mistakes, 6 and 7 and 5 tackles, but we'll tell the story. He says, you averaged 6 tackles over the game. And I said, did I? But anyway, that wiped me for the season.
Oh, gosh. So I've got it up here in the background, Seaford Oval. You make your first grade debut as a referee in round 21 of 1984 at Seaford Oval, when Canberra played the Illawarra Steelers. Can you remember how you were informed of this appointment and what your thoughts were leading up to the game and then the game itself?
Well, in those years, we just got a phone call to say, Dennis, we were training once a week then, yeah? Yes, we were. We were training once a week, every Wednesday, but I got a phone call on the Tuesday because they made the appointments on the Tuesday morning, and I got a phone that I was in first grade. And that was it. And see, we didn't get the coaching and the mentoring that you get these days. And in those days, they expected, if you were going to do first grade, they expected you to be ready.
Yep.
And I got the appointment, very proud moment for me. Went down to Illawarra. It was a game of 2 very good sides in relation to being well coached, play the rules, discipline. So it was an easy game for me. I was all right. The next game that I had was Manly and West the following week. That was different. That was Manly and West, you know, it's my second game Manly playing 5, but we've gone through all the silver tails and the fibre and cement and all that sort of thing. And so that was a must-have. But I refereed Western Suburbs, where they had players like Cogger, Bruiser Clark, Alan Fowler, Brett Clark, all players that played first grade, and I refereed in the West Juniors. So that was a game, like it felt like refereeing back A grade or B grade, D grade with a bunch of players, and that really settled me down and helped me to the second game and sort of kicked me on from there.
Yep. So I know you just mentioned there weren't too many mentors, but who were some mentors or big influences on your career?
In the juniors, it would have been Bill Pearson was a great mentor. He got graded and came back to West, and he was a great knowledgeable of football refereeing. There was Max Godfrey was another one, Gordon Malik, and they were mentors. Then in grade, Eric Cox would have been my biggest mentor as a referee coach. And there was other, wasn't, as I said earlier, it wasn't, you weren't overcoached or coached considerably like you are today. You were expected to get yourself ready. You know, they tell you the mistakes you made and how to get around it. But, you know, we didn't have the mentors and the number of people that they have today in those days when I refereed first grade.
Yeah. Did you have a story, another story you wanted to tell? just before?
Well, I was going to say the first grade. Manly was coached by Bob Fulton.
Yep.
And I refereed Manly.
He loved referees. He loved referees.
Oh, absolutely loved them all. Loved them all. And, you know, I met after football, when I retired and became the coach and all that, we corresponded and talked quite a bit. Lovely man off the field.
Yep.
But geez, as a coach. Anyway, I refereed Manly played South, and they were fighting for the semi-finals. And I refereed them as a Monday night football game at the cricket ground. That was a few years later. And he was a great person, Fulton, to send the skipper at half-time when you went out to remind you about the penalty count. So Paul Vaughton came up to me and he said, Dennis, I got told to say this to you. The penalty count is, I don't know, it might have been 8-5 South Way.
Yep. I
said, oh, yeah, okay. Thanks, Paul. So Manly kicks off. South gets the ball, and I line myself up. The next tackle, they get tackled. The next tackle, I line myself up with Manly. I take a step back and whack, 10-yard penalty, a 5-metre penalty against Paul Vaughton. And I turn around to Paul and I said, mate, that's penalty number 9 now. Understand what I'm trying to get at? And he said, and Paul Vaughton, he said, no, Dennis, don't please. I just got sent to tell you that. Please don't. I said, we understand each other. So that was the Fulton method, trying to get the referees.
Very different these days, very different.
Oh, yes.
What was probably the best piece of advice you got given throughout your on-field career?
One of the first ones was stop and think. Stop and think meant that, you know, there's something that happens, don't overreact, take your time and think about it.
Yep. That
was one of the first things that we had to do. And then another one's take your time to blow a penalty before you lift your whistle to your mouth. Take the time to think about it, what's the best thing you've got to do. So it's all about taking time and not overreacting.
I think.
And then sorry, go on.
I think that's really important in terms of advantage, and often the penalties we don't blow as referees end up being the best pieces of refereeing and getting some sort of advantage out of it. Beautiful words. Yep, you're absolutely 100% correct. Yeah. So criticism of referees in the media has been around since Jesus was a boy. How did you handle this personally? Did you stay away from the papers, or did you sort of read it and chuckle it off, or what was your approach?
I never chuckled it off because I read the papers, and I think people that say they don't, I think they're wrong. They read it. I read it. I admit it. And I never laughed it off, because any information that I received, I used to, and in my coaching career, I used to tell them the same thing. You've got to take it in.
Yeah.
And then you throw away the rubbish.
Yeah.
And there might be something in there that you can learn about yourself and what happened. And so I'd look at criticism and I'd read it, and then I'd say, oh, no, that's rubbish, or take it in. I always did that. So I never laughed it off.
Yeah. But I suppose that takes a strong character or a strong mind to do that.
Yeah. Well, you've got to do that. Then you've got to be able to sit down in front of a mirror and look at yourself, and then say to yourself, was that decision okay or not? And just look in your eyes and look at yourself, and in the self-analysis to be fair income about it, to say you can learn from that mistake and fix it up. Yeah. Be honest with yourself. That's the thing.
Yeah. So one incident that gained a lot of publicity was when you dismissed Greg Alexander in the mid to late 1980s. In those days, referees often had to front up to judiciary. Can you tell us a little bit about this incident?
Yeah, that wasn't one of my best moments. But you see, I didn't do too many first grade. I didn't do 100 or 150, but I did a number of them, but I always struggled, and referees that struggled to get away from the bottom 4 or 5 sides or 6 sides to the top 7 or 8 sides. If you always had you got a point at the first grade when you came up through, and you always got those lower sides.
Yep.
And they were difficult to referee because they weren't doing anything in the premiership. They weren't going to win it. They weren't going to come close to going to semis. So you had players whinging and making, wanting to be the year to be finished up. They don't play well. Some of the players are not always the best first graders. So you find it difficult to referee. And Norths and Penrith were 2 sides like it in that year. There were some good players in them, but they weren't playing well. And so there was a tackle where Baker and Alexander tackled, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, they tackled a North Sydney. I think it was a halfback or somebody.
Andrew Simmons, I think it was.
Oh, the winger.
Yep.
The winger. Anyway, and from my angle, they were both hit him high. And from my angle, I thought it was Greg Alexander. But when you saw the video, it wasn't Greg Alexander. It was, it wasn't. I thought it was Baker. And when I looked at the video, it wasn't Baker, it was Alexander. I sent Baker off.
Yep. And
of course, I admitted once I saw the video that Baker wasn't the culprit, it was Alexander. So they let Baker off, rightly so. And but the judiciary wanted to prosecute Alexander, so they called him in and they prosecuted Alexander, gave him a couple of weeks. And that proved that was the right call to make, to send off a player for that tackle.
Yep.
But unfortunately, from my angle, I sent Baker off. I thought it was his arm that built him around the head.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a referee in any sport, in any game, that hasn't made such a kind of error before, and there won't be a referee that'll go through their career without making an error like that. And I think, as you said before, the brutal honesty of looking at it yourself and putting your hand up and owning that mistake is really important.
Yeah.
So many of our staying on theme of referees and publicity, you featured in an article here along with Graham Annesley, Kevin Roberts, Greg McCallum, Mick Stone and Bill Harrigan. Can you tell us a little bit about this, showcasing referees off the field? Yeah,
it was. We were picked up. It was the first really study of how much fitness does a rugby league referee need. We used to train once a week. So our training in the 80s was train once a week every Wednesday, and then do some running around Redfern, and then go to the pub and have 3 or 4 schooners, then drive home. There was no 0.05. There was nothing like that.
Yep.
So that was our training. This was the first study that sort of tried to see. They had this brand new machine about picking up a heart rate and stress levels. They wanted to see the stress levels. So we went on a machine, a treadmill, and had all these wires hanging out. And then they used to ask us to make decisions, rulings, and things like that. So it's all about all that. It was the first study that really tried to see how much pressure there was on a referee and how much fitness that he needed before he started making mistakes.
So
I probably picked me because I was the slowest referee.
Many of the current young referees coming through wouldn't be aware they actually trialled the 2 referee system in the 1980s. You had a taste of this, and for anyone who's read Bill Harrigan's book, he made mention of teaming up with you. Now, the model was a little bit different to how it is today. Can you run us through it?
They tried different models, but that was the first one that we tried. It was one of the first ones. And it was South Plain East's first grade at Redfern Oval in a trial. And what they decided to do is have 1 referee on the play the ball and 1 referee on the 10 metre, at the time it was 5 metres, I think, or 8 metres. And 8 metres. And then you had your 2 touch judges and your 2 in-goal judges. So they said, Dennis, you go on the 8 metres. You have to run and stay on the 8 metres. And when they're offside, you wave a flag. And Billy had to go from play the ball to play the ball to make sure that the play the balls were clean. All I'll say is they sent us out to do that, to referee that, to experiment with that for a specific purpose. And they gave us a specific purpose, that the result that they wanted to get out of that game. That's all I'll say that. So I waved my flag about 10, 15 times. At one stage, there was this bloke from, they called him the Axe, that played State of Origin for Queensland. Gilmeister,
yep.
Great footballer. And I used to always be next to him. He was a second row type. And of course, he was in front of me, and I'd wave it. And then I'd take a step back, wave it again. And he turned around, no teeth, and looked at me and just smiled. He said, "You're out to get us, Dennis, aren't you?" I said, no, you're just offside. You've got to stay with me. Anyway, we got the result that the league wanted after that trial.
Yeah, so very different. The referee at the ruck had the whistle and had the control.
Yeah, he had the control.
So we talked a little bit about your last game and your conclusion of your first grade career in 1988. Can you tell us a little bit about the time after the end of your first grade career and then moving into the coaching roles of referees at the top level?
Yeah, I retired in 1989. Yeah, was it 1989? Yeah. And I decided then to, I got the phone call from the appointment board saying that my career was going to take a different course. In other words, go on the line. And I said, I've ran enough. I think I just make numbers on the line. It's not right. Young blokes need to come up to first grade to get. So I retired because I said running lines wasn't for me, and I didn't want to be a stopper for anybody else having a go at first grade. So I retired. Then I still wanted to be part of the game. I had something to offer, I thought. So I became an advisory board member. And then in 1992, I joined the refereeing coaching panel with Kevin Roberts, and Mick Stone was the head coach at the time. And then I became a coach for first grade and second grade and third grade with Stoney and Kevin Roberts. Then in 1990, that was 92, then we had the Super League fiasco, which was a real hard time for Mick Stone, because he was working for the league then, and some referees left. We lost a number of referees in the Super League era. We lost Billy Harrigan, we lost Clark, we lost Annesley, Chris Ward. So we lost quite a number of referees, and the New South Wales Rugby League referees, we didn't have much first grade referees. They took the most of the first grade referees. So we, as coaches, really had to try and find some first grade referees. And we had some good kids: Kelvin Jeffs, Simpkins, Hampstead. They came up through, and so we did that. And that was a very hard period of time for refereeing then, because there was only one club in that era that got torn down the middle, and that was the referees. We got torn down the middle. No other clubs. Clubs either joined Super League or joined the ARL. We got split down the middle, and that was a tough time for referees then. We held meetings and all that sort of thing to try and stick together, but it never happened. So anyway, that's another story. And then in 1998, they joined together, the two, Super League and the ARL joined together. And so Mick went to the NRL. They formed the NRL. He went to the NRL, and the New South Wales Rugby League asked me if I could become a coach for second grade down for the New South Wales Rugby League. Do it for 3 weeks, they said to me, and then we'll try and find somebody else somebody that can do it. I said, okay, I'll fill in for 3 weeks. Anyway, 8 years later, I was still there. And I used to do it 1 day a week because I made 1 day a week to the football. And I had some great people around me then as assistant coaches like Mick Ryan, Kevin Jeffs. Kelvin, at the end of his career, when he retired, he was a coach. There was Ian McCall, Brian Bonney. I had some great coaches. And I was particularly proud at that time because I hope I'm not boring you.
No, you're not.
I was particularly proud of that time because I took it over in 1998, the New South Wales Rugby League, as I said, coaching manager and coach, senior coach, an appointment board. And in that era, we brought through some very good referees that some of them are still refereeing now. And some of them have retired. But, you know, people like Benny Cummins, Tony Archer, Badger, Cliffy Lyons.
Steve Lyons.
Cliffy Lyons. You know, people like that. Great referee. Jason Robinson was another one. You know, you can name a whole stack of them.
Yeah.
They all refereed first grade, and they come through the system that I was in charge of.
Yeah.
And I'm particularly proud. But I'll tell you 2 stories if I can. That really, I don't tell much, but one of them was Tony Archer. Now, Tony Archer had refereed first grade in 2001, but when Robert Finch came and took over the referees at the NRL, he came to me, Finchy, and said, Dennis, you can have Archer, I don't want him. Because he wanted to, Tony must have refereed something at Canberra because Archer, Finchy was football manager of Canberra, so he must have done something wrong there. Anyway, didn't want him as a referee. And I said to myself, I walked away and I said, no, I'm not going to throw Archer away because I thought he had some ability. So anyway, brought him back to reserve grade. 2002, did all reserve grade at the end. I gave him the reserve grade grand final with Paul Kalina and somebody else on the line. He did a reasonably good job. And from that, Finch saw it. And I said to Finch, I said, see that? He can still handle first grade. And he took him back up. And there's the story. He'd done 5 grand finals, state of origins and all that. So I was particularly proud of resurrecting that career in the sense of trying to help referees. That was my purpose all the time. And the other one is Gerard Sutton. Gerard Sutton was in reserve, refereeing in Metropolitan Cup. And at one stage, and he was trying to get into the NRL squad. And Finchy said, you'll never make it. Finchy again told him, you'll never make it in first grade. If you want to make first grade, you'll be a touch judge. And I said, and he came and we talked it over. He came to me, he wants me to be a touch judge, but I think I still got something. And I said to him, you still have. He was young. You still have, mate. I'll tell you what we'll do. Don't take it up. We'll keep you down in our squad and you can work. It's up to you with the help from us. We'll get you up there. And guess what? How many grand finals has he done in state of origins and all that sort of. So people that we didn't throw in a scrap heap, we nurtured them. They're the things what I'm proud of.
Yeah, no, you should be. You made an excellent contribution to many young referees' careers. Let's move on to the video box. So at the turn of the millennium, you're one of the first group in '98 to be involved in video refereeing. You did 52 games over 2 seasons. How did you get into this, and how was this experience? And firstly, what's doing with that shirt, Spags?
Oh, this one?
No, the one in the picture.
Oh, don't you like it? Oh, don't say that. I won't say that. My wife loved that shirt for years.
Oh, it was a good going out shirt.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Mick was in charge of the NRL referees, and he had to get a team of the video referees. And he said, Dennis, I need some video referees. Would you mind being one? I said, I'd love to, Nick. And so I was one of the ones that he picked to join his squad of video referees. And I did that for 2 or 3 years. How many years did you say I did it for?
2.
2.
Yep.
2 years. And then I couldn't handle working full-time, video refereeing, and then doing the New South Wales Rugby League referees. I couldn't do it. So I did it for 2 years, but it was a great experience. Great experience that I enjoyed very much. But we didn't have all the equipment they've got now, and we didn't make all the decisions they do now. We just we didn't have as many decisions to make, but it was a great time, and I enjoyed that as part of the video referees.
Yeah, that Samsung box TV, that must have weighed a ton.
Oh, that's that. They used to set that up, but that's all we had. What I got on that screen, and what was in my hand, I've got a box there with a set of tumbler switches. Tumbler switches is you turn the switch one way, it tells you something, and you push the switch another way, and there's another thing. So let's look at ref score or a scrum or a try, no try. Let's look at it, and I'll tell you a little story about it, excuse me. If you push that switch to the left, try comes up, or you push the switch to your right, no try comes up.
Yep.
Well, one year I'm doing at Brookvale, first grade, and Manly scores a try. No, South scores a try, and it was a no try, right? So I pressed the button, and it goes to try, and I said, oh no, I stuffed it. So I changed my mind to no try, and it went from green to red. Ray Hadley was next door doing the game. When he saw that, he bashed on my window. What's going on? What's going on? And I said, oh, stuffed up. So no try, stuffed up. One of those funny things with their switches. These days, you press a button and they ask you sure you've done it right? You press it again before it goes up. They got all the safety of it.
I was going to say, growing up as a kid, I can't remember how many times those old boards used to stuff up anyway. They'd just have to pan to the referee and you'd tell him what the decision was anyway and he'd award the try.
Do you remember Barry Barnes? You ever met Barry Barnes? He was a first grade referee and he was one of the original, video referees. Well, he had a board malfunction. What do you call a board malfunction? And he had the same problem. He pressed it one way and he wanted to do the other way. But then he got himself confused. Next thing is all the set of lights were flickering on and off, on and off. And he was saying, board malfunction. They were pressed. Geez, we laughed a lot with that.
Oh, gosh. So what would you say was harder, that technology or getting onto Zoom?
Getting onto Zoom.
Oh, gosh. All right, let's move on to post-career. So since your retirement from active refereeing, you've had many coaching roles, as you said, but you're also chairman of our great association for 5 years. What are you most proud of looking back on that time? It was a great time of transition in refereeing and in rugby league in general.
See, my main goal was always looking after the members' interests, the well-being of our district associations and the well-being of our district association. So that was my sole purpose as a chairman. I wanted to do that. And we went through a period that was very difficult with the association because of the full-time squad with their special needs and junior rep sides with their the lower grades with their special needs. So it was a particularly tough period for everybody. But I hope in some decisions I've made, I hope I helped that with that association because I love that association. I love the Referees Association. The 2008 centenary year was a big one that we had to organise. It was a real good do that to celebrate the association 100 years. We saw some big changes in the association that we went through those years. But you know, you always do your best you can, and I think we did okay.
Yeah. No, certainly. My first memory is coming into the association as a delegate, starting off for Parramatta, but even before junior reps, you were the chairman, and always a welcoming face, and always had the best interests of the association and its proud history at the fore. So you became a life member of our great association in 1997. That same year, you won the George and Amy Hansen Medal, now known as the Doug Winton Medal. What did the life membership mean to you, and the award on that night?
Well, life membership is an honour, is a great honour to me, given by your peers. So your peers are saying, Dennis, we are thankful of you, of what you've done, and that's why you're a life member, and the way you've represented our association. So it's a great honour to get that, and you know, you don't strive for it, but when it comes, you're particularly proud, and I was particularly proud about that. You know, you don't do things to get paid when you're a referee, administrator. You do things to support the younger referees coming through, the same as the referees supported you coming through when you were young. So you just try to carry the thing through. But it was a great honour being made a life member of that association, of the Referees Association. Great.
Now, you've touched on the importance and significance of this man in your life earlier, Eric Cox. In 2009, you won probably what is the most esteemed award in the association. It's for service after gaining your life membership. What did this recognition mean to you personally?
Well, to understand that is you try and understand what the Eric. I was chairman then when we made that as a presentation. Eric Cox medal. Eric Cox was a great man, huge man in refereeing. He was a secretary of the New South Wales Rugby League Referees Association for 18 years. Nobody broke that record, I don't think. No, 18 years, maybe less, I'm not sure. But he was 18 years. He was a secretary. He was an appointment board. He did a lot for the game and a lot for refereeing. So we thought that we should instigate that medal for some special acts for people. And Jack O'Sullivan was our first one, which, if anybody remembers Jack O'Sullivan, he'd done a lot of work both at senior and junior level.
Another Western Suburbs man.
Yes. And then the second year the board decided to give it to me. I was very shocked to receive that. And that was one of my proudest moments, to receive that medal, because I knew why we implemented that medal, what was behind it, and I knew what it would have meant to people. And you talk to any recipient and they'll tell you what, you know.
Certainly.
Tell you that.
Certainly. Now, outside of the New South Wales Referees Association, you were also chairman of the now defunct ARLRA. Can you tell us just quickly a little bit about that association for our younger members who may not have heard of it, and what its relevance was at the time?
The Australian Rugby League Referees Association. We had rugby league that was played at South Australia, Victoria, Western Australia, all what we call the emerging states, and yet there was no help for them whatsoever. So this is before my time. Ian McCall, Kevin Riolo, and the bloke from Queensland, which was I'll come to him in a minute.
Nick.
Sorry?
Nick.
Yeah. So the three of them got together and said, listen, we have to do something about supporting these referees. So they formed the Australian Rugby League Referees Association, which was a special body that looked after that side of the game. And so with a budget of about $50,000, they used to run, they used to organise the training, seminars for these referees, trying to get referees in these states and all that sort of thing. So when I joined when you were a chairman of the New South Wales Referees Association, you automatically went on that board of the ARL. And from there, I just carried on the work with a lot of help from other people. You've got a picture there of the people on that board. There's a group of men there, really and truly, that work real hard to make that association work. And they did, on a measly budget. And then with the development of the game, involvement of the game, now it's to a stage where you've got full-time people on good salaries looking after referees, but still the game in the far reaches is still, it's dying now, but you know, we need it. We need it.
Yeah. Now, you're also given the honour of life membership in 2006 of the ARL referees. Moving on to outside of refereeing, you were chairman of the New South Wales Leagues, and we see some images here of the 100 years celebration. How did this come about, and what did your role involve?
Well, this was the New South Wales Leagues Club. The New South Wales Leagues Club was the home club for the New South Wales Rugby League. It really was. Now, Eric Cox died, and about 12 months later or so, like that, Greg McCullum, who was one of the managers there, a football manager, not a football, a club manager, he asked me if I would take a vacant position on the board, and I said, to help us out. I said, okay, yeah, I'll help out. So I assumed the position on the board of the New South Wales Leagues Club. And then when elections came, I got voted in as one of the board men directly in. And then the board moved that I'd be chairman. And so I became chairman of the New South Wales Leagues Club. But I went in there when the club was very much in trouble financially, because the club, from its huge beginning, was in an area in Phillip Street, Sydney, where there was people didn't go drinking anymore. Membership went down, so they were suffering massive losses, and so we had to massive debts. So the building got sold to pay the debts, and they finished up with quite a bit of money still there. And I initiated merger talks with Windsor Wolves Club, which were progressive. We'd be taking charge of the Windsor Wolves, their whole setup there, but it never came off because I got defeated in the elections in 2014 or something, and the club got closed up. But it was a very small period of my life. Certainly at the New South Wales.
But it's certainly a place with lots of history, rugby league history. Used to be housing judiciaries. We housed referees, examination boards, going to get your tickets. So certainly a building that had great significance in terms of the league over a long period of time. Now, as alluded to earlier, many life memberships across numerous associations. In 2007, you received life membership of the New South Wales Rugby League.
Yeah.
Now, what were these feelings a little bit different, considering this was something outside of refereeing? It was for contributions to the game in general?
Well, yes, it was in the sense that, again, there was a life membership, and an honour to get a life membership. But for a referee to get life membership of the New South Wales Rugby League is particularly an honour, in the sense that it's not a referees association. It's not really your peers, but it's it's who runs the game, who some of the senior best players that ever ran the game are life members there. So to be considered and voted on by some of the names that you see in that list that make up life members of the New South Wales Rugby League that go back to 1908. was particularly an honour for me. And there's not too many referees that get considered for that life membership, you know, because you've got players like Johnny Raper, Langlands, Smith. You've got players that ornaments to the game that are life members there, and I joined that group. So there, that was a different aspect. Wasn't refereeing your peers. It was a different aspect of the game.
So, Dennis, for a man who's had many experiences, many hats across many areas of the game, what do the friendships mean to you that you've made out of the game?
That's one. If you had to ask me what's important, what you got most out of the game, one of them high up on the list was the friendships. The friendships, particularly from your junior rep days, your junior district club. I made some great friends there, and particularly Mick Stone and Mick Ryan were particularly, we were particularly close together. We got graded together more or less, got to first grade, we all officiated in first grade. Then we all continued on. We didn't just walk away from the game. We continue on in being coaches and administrators of the game, friends for life. Friends for life. So they were three extra good friends. And then you've got the others. You know, I made some lovely friends, and I'm still friends with, you know, a lot of people are still now. And I've been blessed with that. Yeah. And every referee is blessed with making all these friends.
I think, yeah, that's something you ask any referee, and that's one of their top three that they get out of refereeing is certainly friendships.
Yeah. Whether they come out of Queensland country, New South Wales metropolitan, Darwin, I've been able to, because of all my travelling as an administrator and a coach, I went all over Australia, went to New Zealand, he did it in New Zealand, helped out in New Zealand. And I did, and you make so many friends, but so many good people are part of this game of ours. Yep. And that's what you get a lot from being a referee.
Yeah, I think often we can focus too much on the negatives in our great game, but there's plenty of positives to come from it.
Can I just say one more thing?
Of course you can.
Apart from referees, I referee in an era where we used to get on with players also and officials. We had our moments. But some of the friendship that I formed with players after you've retired off the field, and you know, like one of my proudest dues that I go every year is I do that Ken Gentle, ex Western Suburbs first grade coach. Yep. He organised every November back to Westside. So you got 70 or 80 ex-West players that I refereed in the time, and you're part of that, and you go and the friendships there with them, and we talk about those old days still now. We're talking about 30 years later.
Yeah.
So that's rugby league, what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly is. We might backtracking just a little bit. In 2000, you got the honour of the Australian Sports Medal. That must have been a bit of a thrill at the time.
It was. Well, you don't expect the kind of things, but it was done in the 2000 year of our Olympics, and it was a specially struck medal for services to sport. And I was one of the very proud recipients. That medal was basically started for volunteers that contributed to their particular sport to make it better. And I received it, signed by the Prime Minister, John Howard, and then William Dean was the Governor General. They signed it, and it's very proudly hung up for me. And you know, it's just a recognition, I suppose, of all the hours that you put into the game. And I keep on saying, it's not only me though. You keep on saying your family that allows you to do it. You know, my wife Karen and my daughters. That supported me and allowed me to do all that, a part of that medal.
Yeah, I think that's something really important, that we make these contributions to the game, but it's a reflection of those that are around us, our support groups, the sacrifices that they make to allow us to do something that we love and do it on an ongoing basis is extremely important. Now,
I tell you, I'll just say, Daniel, I'll tell you, if it's not for them, if they didn't support you the way they do, you couldn't do it.
Yeah, no,
you couldn't do it. It's
totally
the support
agree.
that you got from your family.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, on a lighter side, you're still quite active in the social department of the association. You come to the Life Members Luncheon at the SCG. Also, been to many golf days. Is there a golf day you haven't won yet? I know you said you had a handicap of 27. You've won a lot for a handicap of 27, Dennis.
I'm a brilliant golfer, but better, I'm a brilliant counter of golf shots. I can count them very well. That's what gives me the winning formula to win golf tournaments.
Might be going back to Bob Fulton's average, saying you got an average. Ron Massey, sorry, saying average of shots.
That's it, Ron Massey's average. Yeah.
All right, so we're coming towards the end of a very enjoyable chat this afternoon. I can't let you go without asking about something that's sort of projected you into a bit of a cult status. That Mo, it's got its own postcode. Is it something you've always had since you were 8 years old?
Well, let me tell you, the best way I can say it, my wife, married for 40 years this year, and, you know, gone out, been together for 45 odd years. She's never, ever, ever seen me without a Mo. Never. Yep. I reckon if I shaved it off, she wouldn't recognise me. She's never seen me without it. So that's how important that Mo was. And I've had some good ones. Good when it was black, and you've got a picture out there. That's brilliant, that Mo.
It is brilliant. It is brilliant. The envy of many men, many men. Now, I've been asking all the Life members what they have taken most out of the game. You mentioned friendships before. Was there something else you wanted to mention in terms of one of the biggest benefits you got out of refereeing?
I've mentioned that Pratton Park Magpies is another one that I go and see a lot. I got asked to go to their presentation day, which I enjoyed. See, Pratton Park, Western Suburbs Asheville, before they joined with the Tigers, before they went to Campbelltown, I should say. They used to be West Asheville, and their home ground was Pratton Park.
Yep.
And I refereed their second last game at Pratton Park in first grade for them, and Mick Stone refereed their last game at Pratton Park before, you know, they were playing at Lidcombe already, but they played those two games at the end then. Well, they've asked us every year now to go to their presentation day, and I enjoy that very much. Again, West, that's our local district. Yeah, what a great picture you've got, Kevin Roberts there. Yeah, so that's an Eric Cox medal presentation.
Yep, it was a wonderful night. Wonderful night.
Yes.
Now, to finish off, our fast five. So barbecue or tomato sauce?
Tomato.
Tomato sauce. Now, I'm going to change this next one for you. Normally, I've been asking people Ford or Holden, but for you with the Italian theme, Bugatti or Maserati?
Maserati. Oh, shit. Bugatti. Watch me out. Maserati, Ferrari, Fiat. That'll do me. Anything Italian.
Lamborghini, Alfa Romeo.
Oh, well, that's a bit of style. Yes.
State of origin or grand final?
Well, I've never done one, but
in terms of the spectacle.
I think a grand final.
Yep.
I think a grand final.
Beach or snow?
Snow.
Snow. And the last one, money or free time?
Money or free time? Money.
All right, Dennis, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this afternoon. It's been very entertaining and very enjoyable. You're a very popular man amongst the refereeing fraternity, and I could see why. You're not only funny, but certainly many emotions, and you're brutally honest, which was extremely refreshing to see. So it's been a pleasure this afternoon. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Daniel.
Look after your family and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Daniel. You're doing a great job. Really great job.
Thanks,
Good
Dennis.
on you.
I really appreciate that. Have an excellent afternoon, and we'll catch you all next time. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.